This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome. You've heard and read the spin the media and the politicians have put on the issues of the day. To get the correct spin on what's going on in North Carolina, let's introduce you to our panel of experts. They include former legislator, now lobbyist, Connie Willson, John Hood with the John Locke Foundation, Chris Fitzsimon from NC Policy Watch, and former Attorney General, former Secretary of State, former candidate for governor, Rufus Edmisten. This week we're going to be talking about Governor McCrory's vetoes and whether the legislature is going to override them, the governor's speech to the State Community College Board, and a suggestion about a new gambling casino in North Carolina. Let's get started. Governor Pat McCrory exercised his gubernatorial veto power by nixing the proposed law that would allow social service workers to test welfare applicants for illegal drug use, and another one that would have expanded the exemption for seasonal workers from the E-Verify program that requires a check on immigration. Both vetoes drew immediate and negative reactions. Connie, the question I think most political observers have been asking this week is why the governor vetoed these bills when both of them had sufficient margins of passage to override a veto. You got any ideas?
You know, the reasons why it's come up with do make sense. I mean, talking about with E-Verify, the furniture industry, there were some folk there pushing for that, so it's not just an ag issue where it's seasonal, and so you could question, well, is furniture really seasonal? And on the flip side, with the drug testing, the cost, you know, all other types of problems that there might be out there, they passed, like you said, overwhelmingly. I do believe he sincerely believes in how he vetoed those bills, but he's newer at the job. I mean, Honest Engine hasn't been a year yet. He has a lot of new staff. I remember when Governor Hunt was in power, and the Republicans gave him the veto power. That was our big pushback then. He never vetoed a bill, but he was always able to influence legislation. So I really believe that Governor McCrory is still newer at the job. His staff is still newer, and they just haven't gotten a good grasp on all the tools in their toolbox.
Chris, there are a lot of people that are saying he just wanted to show some independence from the legislature. He wanted to show them that he wasn't a puppet, as he has been accused of doing. And others say, well, he was just trying to show that he was a moderate. What do you think?
Well, you know, these two bills are opposed by different folks. I think that there are a lot of people on the more progressive side applauding his veto of the drug benefit bill and disappointed at his veto of the immigration bill, because I think it does make it a little easier for seasonal workers and others to work. But I think there's something else going on here, which is, and Connie alluded to it, the power of the veto isn't when you use it. The power is to say you're going to use it and change legislation before it gets to your desk. Governor McCrory is of the same party as the people who run the House and the Senate. And if he was so concerned about these bills as they were making their way through the General Assembly, he should have either been able to stop them or change them so he didn't get to this point. And now he faces the prospect of actually having his vetoes overridden by majorities of his own party, which I think would be a very bad signal about his power and how effective he is.
John, as of the time that this show is being recorded, he still has a number of bills on his desk that he has not either signed or vetoed or not signed and allowed to become in law. Any hint of any other vetoes we might see from the governor?
I haven't heard of any other indications of vetoes. There may be some bills he chooses not to sign, but that's different in North Carolina from vetoing a bill. And I don't disagree with everything that's been said so far, but I would also observe that when McCrory agrees with the legislature, he's criticized for agreeing with the legislature.
For being a puppet.
Right, and then when he vetoes bills that the legislature passes, then he's being criticized for not displaying his power properly. I mean, essentially, he can't win for losing.
Rufus, the legislature wasn't real happy with these vetoes. In fact, House Majority Leader Edgar Starnes is all but saying they're going to come back in to override them. And he's been out with his caucus trying to make sure he's still got enough votes to override. Meanwhile, the governor went on Facebook calling out these legislators. That's the first time I've ever heard of a governor doing something like that.
Oh, these modern governors, I declare. The question is, will they override his veto? And I think it's pretty certain that they will, because everybody I've talked with says yes, especially Senator Apodaca. He raised Cain about it. And frankly, I think the governor was right on the one saying the drug test, because that's been proved unconstitutional over and over again. I'm going to give him a little bit of credit, like Connie said. Maybe he just simply thought that these were bad things. I don't agree on the other one, because I want my watermelons and things harvested and not rotting in the fields.
Are you in that business too, Rufus?
I like my vegetables, but I think you got to, once in a while, even though somebody's labeled a politician, give them a little credit for thinking they might really believe in something.
Let's think about this for a second, though. All he has to do to sustain these vetoes is convince, 6 Republicans out of 77 to stay with him. All he's got to do in the Senate is 3 or 4 Republicans. So if he can't get 6 people in the House of his own party on the state government that he controls, many of whom he helped get into office with his votes, I think that does send a pretty strong signal about who's running North Carolina. This is going to be very interesting.
Well, but, like you said earlier, these votes had different, unusual swings. I mean, actually, the immigration bill had almost unanimous Democrat support.
Right, but my point is all he has to do is
split.
get a handful of Republicans to sustain his veto because they have such super majorities. He doesn't need any Democrats.
All right, Connie, let me just ask you this. Okay, we're going to have a veto session in all probability. Any hint the legislature might do something else while they're in session, or are they prohibited from doing anything else in a veto override?
They could always come in and pass a resolution that allows them to do something different. Once you get enough votes together, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But I'm only hearing at this point in time that it's going to be these 2 bills. And like Rufus said, everybody I've talked to said the votes are there to do it.
Where does this leave Pat McCrory if his vetoes get override? Is this going to weaken him as a governor?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Heavens, yes.
I would think that it was certainly not strengthening. It would probably weaken. On the other hand, neither of these bills is at the top of the agenda of most North Carolina voters. So you're right. Institutionally, it'd be a bit of a knock on his power. But as far as long-term political effects, how many people really, truly care about these bills?
Rufus, while I got you here, I got to ask.
I'm not leaving.
I got to ask the question that I think so many people have been talking about, and that is Attorney General Roy Cooper, who publicly spoke out against the voting changes law, and is now going to be asked to defend them. And somebody said, how in the world can you do that when you're so personally opposed to it? What's your take on that situation?
I faced that dilemma so many times. It's something I disagreed with very much, but you have good staff.
But did you speak out publicly about it?
No, I didn't. But he has good staff. They will do what they're supposed to defend the laws passed by the legislature of North Carolina. Now, there were times when I gave rulings that when I told an agency, don't dare do that, and I spoke out about it and said, you can't get by with that. That's different, though, from defending. He will defend.
But are they going to kick in these? Is the legislature going to kick in?
They're going to get their own lawyers.
Their own lawyers.
There's no question about that.
They do not trust the Attorney General's office to get the best legal help.
I think they're wrong on that, because those are professional people. They're not political. I don't care who's in governorship, whatever. I didn't change my stance. I served with Holzhauser. I served with Martin.
Roy Cooper is looking for all the world like he's running for governor, isn't he, Chris?
Well, he is, but I mean, I think, we have the system set up. It's not the first time this has happened. We've had Republican governors. We've had things that the Attorney General disagrees with. The Attorney General's office helped defend the redistricting lawsuit, for goodness sakes, which certainly would have been to his benefit to have that to go the other way. So there's precedent. In fact, we had Doug last week on the show talk about he had confidence as a Republican consultant that the Attorney General's office would do their jobs.
All right. Well, you can watch NC Spin anytime you want. Just go to our website, ncspin.com, and click on the YouTube button on the right side of the page. We post each week's show on Friday, so you can view us anytime you like. And while at ncspin.com, be sure to sign up for our free weekly email newsletter Spin Cycle, and you can follow us on Twitter at ncspintweets. 4 ways to keep the conversation going: ncspin.com, ncspin on Facebook, Twitter at ncspintweets, and Spin Cycle. We look forward to hearing from you. When we come back, a new funding model for community colleges.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Our farmers are among the most productive in the world, even while lacking a stable and reliable agricultural workforce. But the workforce problems in agriculture have reached a breaking point, and food demand continues to rise. Reforms to the immigration system can ensure that farmers have access to the workers they need. The good news is that we still have time to fix this corrosive problem. Tell your congressional representatives that we need comprehensive immigration reform in 2013.
The best part about being a member of a Touchstone Energy cooperative is that it's your Touchstone Energy cooperative. Learn more about the power of your co-op membership at togetherwesave.com.
North Carolina's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, looking out for you.
Do you have questions about the foods you eat and the farmers that feed us? If so, register to attend the Food Dialogues North Carolina. This free panel discussion will include food and farming experts talking about what's on our plates, the importance of consumer choice, and how farming and food production have changed over the years. The Food Dialogues North Carolina is September 19th at the Raleigh Convention Center. Registration is free, but space is limited. Visit fooddialogues.com to register now.
We now return to NC Spin.
As students head back to the classroom for the new school year, Governor McCrory addressed the State Board of Community Colleges, telling them their colleges were the key to the state's economic recovery and its ability to attract good-paying jobs. Acknowledging that our 58 community colleges were not being properly funded, the governor said the state needs to find a new way to compensate these schools that are training potential employees. Chris, we've been talking about how underfunded and undervalued community colleges were on this show for years. Is the current funding model, which is based on full-time equivalent students, the reason why they're not getting the money that they need and deserve?
No. I'm sure most people would be open to a different funding model, but I don't think you can blame the current funding model for the lack of funding. I think you blame the lack of funding on the General Assembly's Democrats and Republicans for not giving them the funding they need. I don't think it's that complicated. But one of the things that the Governor McCrory also suggested that maybe community colleges should be funded in some way by how many jobs they put people in, which sounds good on paper. But what about the community colleges being, we've talked about on the show, the first place that kids go who maybe don't get into a four-year institution? What about community colleges that are used? Sometimes, if we're going to give incentives to corporations, which we shouldn't, I'd much rather help them train workers than just give them cash, which favors one industry over another. So the community college is playing a lot of roles. But one thing is clear, neither Democrats nor Republicans have adequately funded it in the last 10 years.
John, let's just play devil's advocate to what Chris was saying.
I'm used to that.
Yes.
Well, the devil part.
Well, and what the governor was saying to a certain extent. How can you fund a community college based on how many jobs they're able to get people? I mean, how do you set up a model like that?
You wouldn't do the entire budget based upon that outcome. You might have a variety of different outcomes. For example, for the students who are going there for general college for the first couple of years and then looking to transfer, perhaps you would evaluate the community colleges as to how many students actually transfer. How many did they prepare successfully to go on to four-year schools? I mean, changing the formula, whether it's job training or preparation for university or whatever the community college is trying to do, changing the funding model to encourage success is not a bad idea and is actually separate from the question of whether the community colleges are adequately funded. You know, Tom, it feels like this is such an important show. You could do an entire show about it.
Let me write that down.
Right.
Rufus, so far as it goes, the governor in his remarks seemed to just almost neglect the fact that the community colleges, as Chris said, provide the first and second year of college education for a lot of our kids who either can't get accepted to four-year schools or don't have the funding and want to be able to go close to home.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that I represent something called the NC Association of Career Schools and Colleges, the trade schools. And they can measure it. They know, and that's part of their marketing, that we got the nurses covered down here of our graduating class, and that's their big selling point. They do get people jobs. They know how to do it. I'm just wondering if he's talking about some kind of public-private partnership. I know this, that we get the best bang out of our buck at the community colleges. In my Super Kids program that you know about, every time that one of my Super Kids has gone to a community college, they have succeeded tremendously in whatever they did. I haven't had a failure yet.
Connie, one of the things that's going on, talking about the funding issue, I think it has to be said, during the throes of the recession, people were flocking to the community colleges to get job training and hopeful to try to be able to. The attendance levels, the enrollment levels have decreased over the last couple of years. Is this part of the problem why the legislature's not funding them as well as they should?
You know, there's always going to be an argument that they've been underfunded. The formula has changed. I think it used to be that they funded based on the previous year's enrollment, and now they've gone to an average of 2 years. Something neat that occurred in this year's budget that was an initiative of the community college presidents was an accountability system that they came up with, and the General Assembly funded with $30 million. So they really are trying to move to what Governor McCrory was talking about, and I think that Governor McCrory really is throwing an idea out there to get people to start thinking outside the box.
Well, we know he's very, very supportive of community colleges. He's spoken about that many times. But I think he does open up a good question about examining the way we go about funding our community colleges.
Tom, I'm afraid several years ago the community colleges some of them started trying to be liberal arts schools and teach the things you go to a regular university for. That soured some people.
Or have football teams.
And yes, and the football teams, and some of them do have basketball teams. That's not what they were designed for. They need to stay to their knitting.
Maybe they're just trying to get big contribution from alumni. I don't know. When we come back after these messages, we're going to talk about another gambling casino.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
How bad do you want to become a champion? More than you want to breathe?
We see our student athletes and coaches' commitment to championships every day.
Your support enables us to create a competitive advantage that will help the Wolfpack compete for conference and national championships.
Our work at NC State is just beginning. We are asking more from ourselves, our players, and now we are asking more from you. What is your championship commitment?
It's true. Farming is different than it was 50 years ago. We know consumers have questions about how our food is grown today. North Carolina livestock farmers want you to know that they're using the most responsible and caring farming practices to feed our state.
ncanimalag.com.
The North Carolina Medical Society is committed to a healthier North Carolina. We feel as an organization representing over 14,000 physicians that we have a responsibility and an obligation to help our citizens become more healthy. And by doing this, we want to help educate them about ways in which they need to keep themselves healthy through good nutrition, exercise, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. These ingredients will help not only individual citizens become and maintain a healthier outlook on their lives, but also help contribute to having a healthier state.
We now return to NC Spin.
Video poker, the state lottery, internet sweepstakes, and Cherokee table games tell the story of our state's history with gambling. Now Governor Pat McCrory is considering another option. The governor's office is in talks with the South Carolina-based Catawba Indian tribe about opening a casino just across the North Carolina border in Cleveland County. When word leaked of the possible casino, opponents came out of the woodwork saying the tribe had no formal recognition in our state and many didn't want to see any more gambling. Rufus is our state's attorney general. You had to deal with the issue of gambling quite a bit. What do you think of the proposal to add another gambling casino?
Well, first of all, I think you can be sure that some people are going to be on the warpath about this. Yeah.
Bad pun.
Yeah. But I was attorney general years ago. That's when we started on Cherokee.
Video poker.
On Cherokee and video poker. It took us years and years to get up to the point where we were ready to sign and present to the governor to sign an agreement with the Cherokees on this. Now, first of all, I don't quite understand this, and I think it's more of a story than we think, because probably they were just being kind to these people in Cleveland County, because you talk about the Lumbees can't get recognition. Mm-hmm. The Cherokees are not very happy with this, quite obviously. I don't quite understand this one. I think I would have declined the invitation of the Cleveland County folks to enter into those kind of talks Because when you have members of the legislature that say already that it's DOA, even though the governor has authority to make a compact.
Well, supposedly
I don't know
they were told the governor was in favor of all of this.
I don't know how you can legally do that because there's no recognition here. Now, the Catawbas are a federally recognized tribe.
But not in North Carolina.
Not in North Carolina.
And there are some people, Connie, that are suggesting that because what happened was they went to South Carolina where their tribal headquarters is located, and the Governor Haley down in South Carolina would not give them permission to open up a casino. So they came across the border and started talking to us in North Carolina. They're just trying to get back at South Carolina, or they are trying to use this?
They're just trying to make money. That's all it is. And you know, I'm sure they called up Governor McCrory, and Wright Avenue's opened up, and they met with him. But as Rufus has said, this is definitely a long shot, and we have the Lumbee Indians who are actually here in North Carolina.
Yeah, and they can't get recognized. But John, the Catawba tried to get recognized in 2012, and the legislature turned them down from doing so. Any chance that they might, I mean, wouldn't they have to be legally recognized in this state in order to be able for the governor to make a pact to open a casino?
I suppose. I don't see the immediate prospects for it. I think that this entire story illustrates how ridiculous our rules and laws are regarding gambling. Essentially what is going on is we have one group, one tribe, the Cherokees, and they don't want any competition. Okay, that's why they have squashed the Lumbee from getting recognition. Lumbee is a very large Indian community, much larger than these other ones. They've squashed it for years because they don't want the Lumbee to then get recognition and then maybe get their own gambling operation. This is one business enterprise trying to exclude other business enterprises from their market. That's what it is.
Yeah, the legislature, Chris, is talking about, the governor right now has the authority to be able to make this deal.
Right.
Many of the legislative leaders are saying, hey, we better come back in and take this authority away from them.
Well, here's something I never thought I'd say on the show. Good for Governor Nikki Haley, first of all. Secondly, the problem with these casinos is that even if it's not just the state granting permission and letting them, it's the state cutting itself in for a piece of the action. So we're going to get state revenue. So the state is in effect making money off these casinos, and we're going to finance part of state government by convincing people to gamble, which I think is just outrageous. That
we're betting against the House, aren't we?
Well, it's just not the direction we need. We need to find a much better, fair way. If we could talk about whether or not we ought to have more gambling rules or less gambling rules, the state doesn't need to be in partnership with another casino to raise money for state government.
What do you think the lottery is?
Well, and we need to do
gambling of all.
That's exactly right. I think that was a mistake too.
And I'll go back, Tom. I said this 100 times in this program. We should have taxed and legalized video poker, sweepstakes, all that stuff. If you're going to do it, and people are going to do it one way or another, you would make more money than that lottery does.
Let's repeal the lottery. We could agree on that.
All right.
Yeah, we could agree on it.
After these messages, we're going to ask our panel to tell us something we don't know.
NC Spin is brought to you in part by the North Carolina Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau and Agriculture. We keep North Carolina growing.
You trust your family physician to care for you and your family. We treasure that trust and are committed to providing the best care possible for all North Carolinians. It's time for Medicaid reform, but not without input from North Carolina's family physicians. Medicaid reform will impact health care for all of us. Tell state leaders you want your physician involved. We need Medicaid reform that's good for North Carolina. To sign our petition of support, visit rnchealthcare.com.
Is your business or trade organization looking for a great North Raleigh address? This beautiful, recently updated office building has 3 spacious offices perfect for law firms, accountants, agencies, and associations of any size. Our beautiful lobby boasts attractive finishes and unique Raleigh artwork. We provide ample parking and quick access to both 440 and 540 right at the corner of Falls of the Neuse and Spring Forest Road. Call us today at 919-832-1416 to schedule a tour with the owner.
North Carolina is a great place to live, work, and raise a family, but we consistently rank in the bottom third for state health. Poor health choices and inactivity cost our state $54 billion a year, dollars that could be saved through healthier living. We can do better, North Carolina. That's why NC Spin is working with health and community organizations to launch a Healthier NC, an education campaign and challenge to live healthier lives. Join us at ahealthierNC.com.
As we did last week, we're going to ask our panel to tell us something we don't know. John Hood, we'll start with you.
If you average the recent polls, national polls of President Obama's job approval, and you average the recent polls in North Carolina of Governor McCrory's job approval, they're exactly the same, 44%.
How about that? Rufus, tell us something we don't know.
Well, I believe that you'll see a DMV, that's Division of Motor Vehicles, new head appointed in about the next couple of weeks. And it might be someone with a military background.
Chris?
The troubling news out of the Department of Health and Human Services will continue. I'll just put it that way.
All right, until morale improves. Connie, give us something we don't know.
I want to give good news. We had a wonderful coalition effort between Republicans and Democrats with a bill called Protect Timber in North Carolina. Senator Brent Jackson pulled together the stakeholders group. We had Senator Mike Woodard, we had Jeff Tart, Tommy Tucker. But you don't hear about the good news a lot of times where people working together. That's good news.
Well, I've got one, and it is good news. Connie Willson is going to be getting married very soon.
Yes, that's right.
And Connie, all of us wish you and Ben the best.
Thank you very much.
And going forward. Well, you've heard our spin on the issues of the day. To stay informed all during the week, give your feedback and read our weekly column, visit our website, ncspin.com, or catch NC Spin on Facebook. And we hope you'll join us next week when we take on more issues of interest to the people of North Carolina. Until then, stay informed and watch out for the spin.
Join us next week and get the spin on issues facing our state.